レッスン1、自己紹介。
Self-introductions are useful all over the world when you introduce yourself to others for the first time. For example, it can be on your first day at a part-time job or workplace, at the beginning of an interview with classmates at school, etc. If you are new to a new place and plan to stay there for a long time, these are the most useful phrases you should memorize. When you use Japanese to introduce yourself in Japan or some other place, start with a simple self-introduction, such as your name, nationality, job, and hometown. Also, start the conversation with hajime mashite, which means nice to meet you, and end the introduction with yoroshiku onegai shimasu, which indicates the conclusion of the introduction. Now, let's create your self-introduction. Fill in the underlined parts with items that are relevant to you. Start with the name. When saying your name, it may be better to slowly say your first name and make a slight pause and then say your family name. Alternatively, just say your first name only so that the person can process it and remember it. Even if you say the full name, it may sound too long and complex in English for Japanese people to understand and remember. When saying your name, convert it slowly into the Romanji, English letters, and pronounce it as if you were reading the Roman alphabet, which will make it easier for Japanese people to hear. Remember, not all sounds have a direct corresponding sound in Japanese, and some sound modification may be necessary to match Japanese pronunciation. Next piece of information to include in the introduction is your nationality. Some people are interested in what country you are from. You can tell your nationality by which country your passport is from. If you have dual nationality and two passports, you can say whichever one you prefer. When telling people about your nationality, you usually add a jin after the country's name to mean that they are from that country. For example, if you're from US, Japanese will say your country name as America, so you can say America jin desu. Next part of the introduction is your occupation. In this case, you need to consider whether you are earning money through work. If you are a student, you don't get paid to work, so you don't need to say, my job, watashi no shigoto wa. Instead, start by simply saying, daigaku sei desu. However, if you have a career, you can say, I work in accounting, I work in retail, I work in engineering, etc. It is not necessary to say the specific title of your job at first. The last thing to include is where your hometown is. As we learned in X is Y desu, you should decide whether to use the country name, state name, or town name depending on who you're speaking to. Keep in mind, Japanese may only know the states and not particular city names, except big cities like Chicago, LA, and New York. So often it is useful to say America no, state name, shiu kara desu. From here on, it's Q&A. When asking someone's name, ask, Anata no namae wa nan desu ka? When answering, say your own name. When answering, between listener and speaker already knew what the topic is, so it's okay to not repeat the subject, watashi no namae wa. Now let's listen to a Q&A conversation in Japanese.
あなたの名前は何ですか？
メアリーです。
When asking about nationality, you ask, Nani jin desu ka? Or Okuni wa? Kuni represents the name of the country, and O is a more polite honorific expression put before a noun. When answering about nationality, you say the country name plus jin. Example, America jin. When answering, you can omit watashi wa because the subject is understood. Now let's listen to a Q&A conversation in Japanese.
あなたは何人ですか？
アメリカ人です。
If you want to know what someone does for a living, you can ask, Anata no shigoto wa nan desu ka? If you work for a company, you can answer, Kaija in desu. Literally, company employee. If you work for the government or local government, you can answer, Kumu in desu, which means public servant employee. If you are a student, answer, Daigakusei desu, which means university student. For more details, please see another video. X is Y link, which I put in the description. Now let's listen to a Q&A conversation in Japanese.
あなたの仕事は何ですか？
会 会社員です。大学生です。
When asking your hometown, ask, Anata no shushin wa doko desu ka? When answering, decide whether to use the country name, state name, or town name depending on who you're talking to. For more details, please see X is Y link, which I put in the description. Now let's listen to a Q&A conversation in Japanese.
あなたの出身はどこですか？
バージニア州です。
If you want to ask about a student's major at university, you can ask, Anata no senko wa nan desu ka? When answering, simply state your major. When you say your major, it's easier to understand if you translate it into Japanese rather than trying to use katakana and say it in English. You can omit watashi no senko wa because the subject is understand by both parties. Now let's listen to a Q&A conversation in Japanese.
あなたの専攻は何ですか？
ビジネスです。
Here is some bonus information. In Japan, the following 3 topics are very common in conversations: age, blood type, and Chinese zodiac sign. These 3 topics are familiar to Japanese people in their daily lives and come up frequently in daily conversations. When asking someone's age, you can ask, Anata no nenrei wa nansai desu ka? Or oikutsu. Oikutsu is usually only asked to children. In English, we use how to start, but in Japanese, we use what instead of how, and pronounce as nan. If someone asks you how old you are, you should say the number just like count numbers in the normal way and add sai desu, which means age, and then conclude sentence with desu after the noun. Please remember that depending on your age, such as 18 or 20, there are special ways to say those numbers that are slightly different. So please search how to say your age in Japanese. Now let's listen to a Q&A conversation in Japanese.
あなたの年齢は何歳ですか？
22歳です。
Many people outside of Japan don't know about blood types. However, blood types are so prevalent in the Japanese daily life that they are used as a part of fortune telling on Japanese variety shows and the morning news to predict the day's fortune. Also, stereotypes about people's personalities are determined to some extent by their blood type, and blood types often come up in conversations. There are 4 important blood types: A, B, AB, and O. Positive and negative blood types are irrelevant. When answering, simply answer Agata desu, which translates it is type A. Now let's listen to a Q&A conversation in Japanese.
あなたの血液型は何ですか？
A 型です。
The last common question is asking your Chinese zodiac year. This is also very familiar to Japanese people. The Chinese zodiac is also used in other countries, but the animals used may change. Your zodiac sign comes around once every 12 years. If you are the same zodiac sign but not the same age, you can say, number of Mawari. Hito Mawari for 12 years. Futa Mawari for 24 years plus Yui or Shida. There are also fortune-telling methods to judge your personality and compatibility based on your zodiac sign. In Japan, New Year greetings are traditionally exchanged by sending postcard-sized cards called nengaju, which often have a drawing or a picture of the animal of the zodiac that corresponds to the new year. Now let's listen to a Q&A conversation in Japanese.
あなたの干支は何ですか？
うさぎ年です。
There are abbreviated words to remember for each animal and imaginary creature, such as a dragon. The order of the zodiac is remembered as shown by the black letters in the chart. Ne, Ushi, Tora, U, Tatsu, Mi, Uma, Hitsuji, Saru, Tori, Inu, I. To find out your zodiac, you can search on the internet for the year you born and find the animal associated with your birth.
これでレッスンを終わります。わからないところは復習して勉強してくださいね。